Welcome. Thank you all for being here today. My name is Lauren Fritz. I'm Head of Public Affairs for the US, Canada, and Israel here at WeWork. You don't have to be in this room to know that 1 in 2 people are affected by cancer every day. I've lost friends to cancer, and I've lost family to cancer. The statistics are alarming. But if you are in this room, you want to do something about it. Every day I'm fortunate enough to work at a company like WeWork, where we believe when faced with the challenge, we don't just talk about solving it, we do something about it. By opening up our space to these collaboration hubs, we not only answered, but acted on the Vice President's call to work together to speed up cancer research. In these hub gatherings, we're witnessing the magic that we see in our spaces every day. We're watching as people get together to collaborate with the intention to innovate. And now, for an update on the progress made around all the US, is someone that I don't need to do a formal introduction. He needs nothing at all, because you might recognize him, the former Vice President of the United States, whose mission he has made his life goal to find a cure for this disease, Vice President Joe Biden. I knew I'd throw up somewhere.
Thank you, Lauren. Lauren is one of the most persuasive. She was in the business of handling guys like me and on the other team, and worked for Fox News. And I just want you to know that she's the most persuasive press person I ever met. She's the only one that ever got me on a beach, I think in New Jersey, to walk up to me with a cell phone and say, "You want to talk to Sean Hannity?" And I said, "Are you kidding me?" And I talked to Sean Hannity. So if you, I tell you what, you get me to talk to Sean Hannity, you can do anything. No, I'm kidding. Thank you all. As we say in the outfit I belong to, mea culpa, mea maxima culpa, keeping you waiting so long. I got tied up on a telephone conversation that was pretty important on a public issue, and I apologize for being late. I'm surprised any of you are still here. And, today I stand in front of a community of cancer patients, caregivers, care providers from New York City and beyond. And it's incredible in this shared work environment. I should start off by saying thank you for WeWork. I really mean it, for collaborating. It really makes a difference. And I must tell you, until you signed on to cooperate with us, I had no idea how big you were. I had no idea you're worth $799 billion or whatever. I don't know. But it really is amazing. Thank you. It's going to make a difference. Thank you. 3 years ago, I stood in Davos, Switzerland, just a few weeks after President Obama announced in his final State of the Union address in front of an effort to end cancer as we know it. He set up the Cancer Moonshot and asked me to run it, because I had said my son was dying, and I had said when I decided I wasn't going to run for president, I said my one regret is, because I knew the press would ask me, is that I wouldn't be the president who got to preside over the end of cancer as we know it. And I really do think that we're on the cusp of doing just that. And I was scheduled to deliver a keynote address at the World Economic Forum on the most difficult topics I've ever, intellectually most challenging topics I ever had to deal with, was mastering the fourth industrial revolution. Will there be a middle class with all this changing in the world? But just a few weeks ahead of that, Klaus Schwab, who runs the forum, asked me to put together a roundtable on cancer. And on short notice, I brought together some of the leaders in the world on cancer research and treatment. There were, before that group, there were 88 heads of state at that event, and I don't know how many, several thousand CEOs. And the only thing that I find that unites the whole world and unites us as political parties as well is cancer. It's the only truly bipartisan, internationally operation in which there's a consensus to deal with it, because everybody's affected by it. And many areas of expertise were represented in that panel I put together, from biologists to clinicians, technologists, and engineers. And at that event, these experts and I talked about what made them hopeful in the fight against cancer. That was the reason I had why were they hopeful? And we discussed at that time the science and technology have reached what I call an inflection point. I was stunned when my son was diagnosed with stage 4 glioblastoma. I tried to learn everything I possibly could about it. And I had the access to do it because I was vice president. And I was stunned to realize how little cooperation there was. So many of you brilliant scientists and oncologists and technologists. But I was stunned to find out, and he's been gone 3 years, and he lived about a year after his diagnosis, that it was only about 5 years earlier that there began to be genuine collaboration. We had reached an inflection point where immunology would actually begin to talk to oncologists and the like. I just thought, like most people who aren't familiar with it, that kind of collaboration has been going on a long time. And I asked these researchers and clinicians to tell me more and to discuss with that group at Davos about this disease and how to attack it. And the oncologists routinely working closely with immunologists, virologists, geneticists, chemical and biological engineers, and others in ways that didn't happen 6 years ago. So things were beginning to change. And there's no better example of how times have changed than when you consider that not long ago, immunology was considered a voodoo science. Even though in 1903 and 4 there were some breakthroughs, it was not taken very seriously. And now, just last year, the Nobel Prize in Medicine went to James Allison at MD Anderson, who was part of my son Bo's medical team, and Tasuko Hanjo, for their work on immunotherapies based on checkpoint inhibitors that, unlock the immune system to identify and attack cancers, ridding the body of the disease, God willing. But the hope of those researchers expressed can only be fully realized if we do primarily two things than we ever have, better than we had before. Two things which have driven my work on cancer over the last 3 years. One, inject the urgency of now into this fight. It's in my experience, those suffering from cancer, particularly when it's classified as terminal, they don't expect and some of your oncologists, how many of you have had, I'm not asking for a show of hands, a patient say, "Doc, can you just give me 4 more weeks? I want to be there to watch my grandchild born, Doc. Doc, can you just give me 3 more months because I can straighten out the finances and leave my family behind in a way that's more secure." I mean, it gets down to days, minutes, hours. It's the urgency of now. Now, immediately, now. And the second thing that has to change is the culture has to change. We have to come up with a new strategy for this fight, not the last one that's decades or even centuries old. When cancer research and care system was set up, there was little, if any data sharing among hospitals and researchers, and little ability to share the data they had. And so we have to update our strategy for the 21st century, one that's more interconnected than we could have ever imagined before. Over the last 3 years, I've traveled the country and, quite frankly, around the world, visiting patients and doctors, cancer centers, hospitals, speaking before tens of thousands of researchers, not a joke, clinicians, patients, technologists, and talking to hundreds of advocates to learn what is most needed in this fight. And my goal, our goal, your goal is to, and I may state it differently, was to double the rate of progress to bring new answers and real hope to patients and their families. To do in the next 5 years would ordinarily take 10. Above all else, what I came away with over these last 4 years is I think there's reason for hope, for genuine hope. But only if we solve the issues that stand in the way of patient access to information and care and improve patient outcomes. From what I've learned, there's so much opportunity to make things work better than it's working now. We should be able to say that the affordability of cancer treatments is getting better, not worse. But we can't. We can't. We should be able to say that there's widespread sharing of research data and the medical records are easier and cheaper to get in a way that patients can share them for other research, but we can't say that. We should be able to say that your doctor in Missoula, Montana, has all the tools needed to treat whichever cancer you may have, just as a doctor in Memorial Sloan Kettering Center, Cancer Center does here in New York, or Huntsman out in Utah, but we can't. We should be able to say that patients are provided nurse navigators who will talk them through, and their caregivers through treatment options, through financial conversations, which are critical, help them find their way through the complicated maze of their own healthcare system, give them more peace of mind while they're dealing with this disease. But so far we can't. In each of these problem areas and others, there are reasons grounded in tradition, in culture, in history, and in personal advancement that may have once been valid, but certainly are not valid any longer. And they really are resistant to change. But I guess you all know that, or you wouldn't be here. But we can't change them. We have to change them. We need new voices, new ideas, like from all of you. Not just from research laboratories at the great institutions, but from every community, every sector, from every tech disruptor to community organizer, and everything in between. You know, this is how we have to take on this new fight, in my view. And that's why today at the Biden Cancer Initiative, we've focused on solving major systemic issues and how to deal with cancer research and cancer care. And by the way, I asked when the moonshot was over, a group of 21 heads of cancer hospitals and 4 Nobel laureates and a fellow up at MIT who's brilliant, who ran our scientific effort, came to me and said, we've gone to McKinsey & Company to put together a program where we want you to continue this effort. I said, why me? I have no expertise. And they looked at me and said, which was insightful and kind of insulting, they said, you can do 2 things better than other people. You can convene people, and you can embarrass them. And I thought, what the hell of a reputation that is to have. But look, another way to put what we're trying to do is this. We're trying to create a cancer research enterprise and healthcare system that people think we already have. Those who have not been exposed to cancer are always surprised. They think we already do all these things. When we left the White House, as I said, many of the people working on the moonshot came forward and encouraged Jill and me to continue our work to speed progress against cancer. And, and also included patients groups, leading researchers and patients advocates, board members like David Agus at USC, Lynn Jaffe at Hopkins, Carol Brown from Memorial Sloan Kettering, and, to the musician Taboo from the Black Eyed Peas, who's a cancer survivor and a tireless advocate, and many more. And they convinced us that we could continue to make some kind of hopefully meaningful contribution because, as I said, we can convene people and help them collaborate. And so in June of 2017, also here in New York, Jill and I'm Jill's husband, by the way, Jill Biden, Dr. Jill Biden, not a medical doctor. By the way, I wrote a book that was a bestseller, and the publisher said, you can tell a good story, but your wife is literary. She just wrote a book, so I know my place in my household. But we launched the Biden Cancer Initiative to bring life to the vision of a day when then we can effectively prevent, diagnose, treat, and care for every cancer patient, prove outcomes, and we convened an advisory panel of more than 25 experts, some in this room, covering all aspects of cancer, from prevention to research to care. Leading researchers, community care providers, nurses, cancer docs, heads of cancer hospitals, healthcare experts, data companies, and executives, and try to bring everybody together. We've launched what we call SWAT teams, working groups of experts from our advisory committees. I asked them all to get together, and my dad used to have an expression. He'd say, if everything's equally important to you, Joey, nothing's important to you. So what are the priorities? So I went to the experts and said, what should we be working on the earliest to give the earliest results, to move as rapidly as we can? and to attack the problem of data sharing and data standards. That's what they came up with, to improve clinical trials and pediatric treatment development pipelines, to implement broader patient navigation, and to increase effective prevention and access to treatments and care. For example, in the area of clinical trials, while 25% of cancer patients could qualify to participate in a clinical trial, only 5% actually do. The biggest barriers? Many docs don't talk about clinical trials with their patients. Quite frankly, many docs don't know about where the clinical trials are with their patients. And there aren't easy ways for patients to learn on their own about what trials might work for them. We need to help to identify where these trials are and where there are already working solutions. The 5% enrollment statistic doesn't represent the norm. There are places where 30% or more cancer patients enroll in trials. And there are many more places where almost no patient has access to trial. To help overcome this disparity, we want to learn where trial enrollment is working. What practices, individuals, or parts of the country are becoming more successful in clinical trial enrollment, and where are the impactful technology solutions to deliver information about clinical trials to patients, to the community of oncologists, and to caregivers. You know, that was one of the things that surprised me was, you know, I can get on my cell phone and tell you what's playing in a movie theater in Bemidji, Minnesota tonight at 8 o'clock. But I can't find out easily where the next trial is for a cancer I happen to be diagnosed as having through a test that I have. You know, we contribute to our Pulse on Progress publication, and we've launched just last week to tell us what we should be learning from and expanding in this area. And in the area of data sharing, where patients have their data and at their fingertips, they can improve their own care. For example, by getting a second opinion, and that can help others in contributing to the research. But it's not made easy for some reasons that aren't so noble. And when cancer patients' data is aggregated, it holds the promise to improve care for more patients as their treatment can be informed by a collective experience of cancer rather than by just cases of individual doctors that individual doctor has seen. Even more important in the area of rare cancers. But patients are forced to jump through hoops on top of fighting for their lives to receive their own medical data records. As I said, my son was at a great hospital, MD Anderson. I asked for his cancer genome sequencing, and they said they're not sure. And I said, I tell you what, if I don't have it in 20 minutes, I'm holding a press conference. Well, guess what? I got it. Because I'm entitled to it. I own it. He owned it. Of course, it didn't bother me. You can tell. But really, it's bizarre. And so we're focused on 3 improvements. 1, cancer centers need to step up and go beyond the minimal requirements for providing patients with their data. They should provide easy, transparent ways for patients to request and obtain their medical records in whatever form they wish. And if not, how they can say they are serving the patients to the best of their abilities if they can't do that. So we're bringing cancer centers together to develop new standards. To all you cancer center CEOs out there, please join us. Some have already joined. The second thing is the Biden Cancer Initiative is advising members of a new nonprofit organization. Count me in. The goal is simple. Enable cancer patients everywhere to share their information, samples with researchers anywhere and everywhere. Thousands of patients with cancer have already joined the projects in specific cancers. We could hold here just for a second. You know, when we aggregated what we had at NIH in terms of the cancer cases we had, and we took it out of the University of Chicago, I remember being shown around by a doc, and I said, well, you know, we're going to get a lot more folks. We got 9 countries to sign up to share data and the like. And he said, well, the big problem is that patients don't want to share their data. I said, I haven't found one yet. I'm not a joke. And the press was following me, going around through this. And I said to the press, Come on up, folks. And I said, Doc, I bet if I ask for 5 minutes on national television to go and ask patients to share their data and send it to a specific site, I bet you get 1 million people the next morning doing it. Oh, no, we can do this. We can do this. Guys, do you know any patients? There may be a couple that don't want to share their data because it can be protected and shared. The next project launching this spring will be brain cancer, and will be in the area of brain cancer, enabling patients with brain cancer to share their medical records, their tumor samples, and their experiences, and to help get new answers faster. Answers that may help them, but definitely are going to help those patients who follow. This is important progress to be counted on. Thirdly, we've been working with a project we call M-Code. The goal is to develop a minimum set of common cancer-specific clinical data elements that can be incorporated into electronic health records across cancer centers. The other thing I found out, which a lot of you found out if you were on the receiving end, I just assumed I could get records transferred. I assumed that with medical records, my son was a trial of one with anti-PD-1 and injecting an adenovirus into his brain. And so he was up at Walter Reed and not at Anderson. And so they were taking MRIs once a day. And the only way you get the information down to MD Anderson, I thought it was all because Barack and I had put millions of dollars into making it easier to have electronic record keeping. The only way I could do it, my son-in-law, who has his PhD in neuroscience and is a reconstructive cancer plastic surgeon, he'd go in with a cell phone and take pictures and send it down by a cell phone. In 2017. If used widely, what we're talking about, this new concept, could improve what docs can learn across patient populations and even across nations. The Intermountain Healthcare is the first cancer center to pilot these standards this coming June, with others already willing to sign up. We believe that we can make progress in these areas because of the incredible response we've seen thus far. Over the last 3 years, Jill and I have put out the call for new actions to make decades of progress in 5 years, as I said. And in so many ways, organizations, companies, individuals have stepped up to contribute to solutions we've identified. And not, by the way, when I say we identified, it's not like we discovered them. This is nothing anyone didn't know. But we made it the business of this initiative to focus on them and identified in areas of cancer research and care in numbers and with enthusiasm that we didn't expect when we started this. We thought it'd be a much harder pull, but it's not. People feel it. They feel the movement to make progress. They feel the urgency of now, and it gives them hope, real hope. That's all a lot of folks are just begging for. Just hope, a reason to be hopeful. Whether you call it the Cancer Moonshot or the Biden Cancer Initiative or the community coming together to improve outcomes, the idea is the same, to double our rate of progress in preventing, detecting, diagnosing, treating, and surviving cancer. As part of the Cancer Moonshot, we brought together more than a dozen government agencies, from NIH to the Patent Office, to the Trademark Office, the Patent and Trademark Office of the Department of Defense, NASA, the Department of Energy. When the president gave me the authority he gave me presidential authority to do this in any way I wanted to. I remember one particular head of an agency said, I'm not sure we should do that. And I said, well, maybe you better look for another job or go talk to the president, one of the two. And guess what? All of a sudden, everybody's in. The reason I had NASA in, they forgot more about radiation than you'll ever learn. And so, these new programs are bringing an urgency to the fight of cancer. Over the course of 2016, there were a lot of breakthroughs. But over the course of 2016, we announced more than 80 new actions and collaborations from the public and private sectors. And just last September, we held the Biden Cancer Summit. Some of you participated, bringing together 400 patients, caregivers, nurses, researchers, technologists, clinicians, in Washington, D.C., and thousands more in nearly 450 communities held simultaneous summits, and one in every state in the nation, in Canada, Kenya, and Nigeria as well. Our call to action ahead of that event elicited more than 50 new actions and collaborations announced as part of that summit. For example, one of the key issues we talk about is how to share knowledge from major cancer centers to improve outcomes for the majority of patients who are treated in communities beyond the reach of the cancer centers. Project ECHO has found a way to address this by using a simple but incredibly impactful solution. They use teleconferencing to connect oncologist experts directly with docs and community practices to provide training, moving knowledge rather than patients. Now they're adding 50 ECHO programs to reach 3 million patients by 2025. Airbnb launched its Open Homes Medical Stay program, allowing Airbnb to host their homes for free to people traveling for medical treatment. You all know it. What's the hardest thing? You're dealing with cancer and you can't afford to get to where you have to go. You physically don't know how you're going to pay for the room you're going to stay in. The peace of mind that this brings. In just the past 6 months, roughly 2,000 people have made use of this program. But that's not enough. And today, Airbnb is announcing they'll provide $1.2 million in grants working with organizations who can let more patients know about this opportunity, advertise it more, bring the program to more patients. The New York-based Bone Marrow Foundation and the Cancer Support Community are two of the recipients of this aid to get people to understand it's available. And our host today, WeWork, they joined the fight as well by creating collaboration hubs, dedicated space for individuals working in the cancer community to come together, share their work, and advance the progress. Since November, more than 400 people have been activated in these spaces in several cities across the country, with many more events planned in the coming months. Collaboration Hub members span from nonprofits supporting children with brain cancer to tech companies utilizing AI to breast cancer diagnosis. Community engagement events have included experimental healthcare focused on hack night events, launch and learn sessions around problems in healthcare and cancer research with members from both the tech and research communities. And today, I will kick off the initiative hosted at the Collaboration Hub event, where we're bringing together community oncology leaders in New York City to identify potential pilot projects to address populations right here in this city with disproportionately poor cancer outcomes, the parts of the city with disproportionately poor cancer outcomes. What could be provided for prevention through survivorship, bringing resources to disparate partners together, those who have nothing in common now, to make significant improvements. At least I think we can. I hope we can. These are just a few of the examples of the incredible programs launched as part of the summit. And we found that thousands of organizations, even millions of people, want to work together to end cancer as we know it. Altogether, we've found is that the Biden Cancer Initiative is an opportunity, a reason in some cases, to excuse people, give them excuse to come together, to change the system and practices that have resisted change for decades. We've come a long way in just the past 3 years, but we can't claim victory until the solutions we're developing are the standard, not the exception, until we have changed the things we can't accept. We cannot accept disparities in outcomes by race, gender, or zip code. We cannot accept unaffordable treatments. We cannot accept efforts to roll back the opportunity for all Americans to have affordable, meaningful health insurance. And we cannot accept business as usual practices in research and care when there's nothing unusual about a cancer diagnosis, usual about a cancer diagnosis. So we've taken on these challenges and so much more. And we do it as a united community because it's going to take all of us to deliver hope to millions of patients around the world. And if I could talk there for a minute, I went to Abu Dhabi on a national security initiative dealing with ISIS when I was vice president. It was one of the areas that I had responsibility for. And I'm sitting with the Crown Prince and we're on the Persian Gulf. And I have my national security team, and he has his national security team. We're talking about ISIS now, when it was on the move, establishing what we just defeated, its caliphate. And before we began, the Crown Prince put his hand up and said, "Before we began, can we talk about cancer?" So national security. Before we begin, can we talk about cancer? Can we cooperate with you on cancer? Once a year, we held a meeting in Washington when we were in the White House on dealing with proliferation of nuclear materials. We had 50 heads of state sitting in the West Room with all around this great big rectangular table. I mean, a table strung together in a big rectangle around the room. The president sitting with his back to the fireplace, as you see on television, and me sitting with my back to the hallway. And the president was deadly earnest, and he started off the meeting by saying, "Before we began, I know all of you want to speak to Joe about cancer, but let's deal with nuclear proliferation first." Not a joke. Not a joke. The world's ready. 9 nations have signed on to collaborate, providing data and information. Imagine if you could have every cancer genome sequenced in one place, you had 3 million of them in one place. It would take 20 Nobel laureates more time than it would take in 20 minutes, since we can do 1,000,000,000 billion calculations per second right now, to begin to decode why something works on you and not on me and we have the same cancer. I realize that's simplistic sounding, but we have the tools available now that we never existed before to begin to decode a lot of what we don't know. Together we can continue to make progress. And I think we can make real hope, make hope real. And with all of you collaborating on this and being engaged, I really think we're on the cusp. You know, I'm always cautioned to say we're not going to cure cancer. We're going to cure some cancers. We ought to increase survival rates significantly, cure other cancers, but most importantly, make it available, whatever is available, to everybody regardless of race, sex, zip code, as I said. We can do that. We can give people real hope. That's what you're doing today. And again, I thank you for your patience in waiting for me. And I thank you for your participation, but I promise, this has gone from a goal, I think, to a movement, not because of me, but as a movement. People are no longer prepared to wait. There is an urgency, the urgency of now. We can't let it slip away. Thank you so much. I love you for what you're doing.